YouTube, and welcome to my channel Brainbank TV. And today we'll be talking about some of the myths behind roulette betting. I've just a bit of a history on this. I've kind of been around the betting games for quite a while now. I sort of spend quite a lot of my money betting over the years. I'm not really proud to say that, but it's sort of helped me learn some very useful life lessons along the way with regards to how these odds are presented to people, really. And right, so today we're going to be discussing one strategy that I've kind of learned through my exposure to trade in the foreign exchange market, and that kind of gave me an opportunity to think outside the box when it comes to gambling, and as such led me to creating this really weird strategy which some people might completely throw out the bin, but has worked relentlessly, not to a T, but quite relentlessly over the past few years. I mean, there are some platforms which it works better on than others, but we'll get into that later on in the video. But for now, I'm just going to try and explain the core principles behind the actual strategy. And don't worry too much about my balance on this account right now. For some reason, Coral are trying to wind me up, because on my spreadsheet I do have a balance on Coral of £146, so I'm not sure where £142 of that money has gone so far. I am going to be on the phone to them once again to try and sort this out, because all these companies seem to know how to dip into your accounts and take money out of you where you really don't have no real way of dealing with that. Now anyway, we'll get into the strategy, and then we'll go on to explain it on the actual board right now. But the first thing I'd like to just share with you guys is just some fun facts regarding roulette right now. The first one being, actually no, there's just one actual fact. The fact being, the first form of roulette was devised in the 18th century France. Many historians believe Blaise Pascal introduced a primitive form of roulette in the 17th century in his search for perpetual motion machine. The roulette mechanism is a hybrid of a gaming wheel invented in 1720 and the Italian game Biribi. I don't know what that is. Sorry guys. Now it's saying here the game has been played in its present form since as early as 1796 in Paris. That's a long time, guys, and just remember that means something. You're just not going to walk into any roulette shop and make money based on the fact that you believe you found some holy grail or some new system that might work, because these have all been taken into account, guys. Remember that. Now the strategy I have is a very simple one, for that matter, and the truth is, people, it's gonna have mixed reviews, I suppose, because on one hand you have the fact that you have more of a probability of winning a spin whenever you use my strategy, and on the other hand you have the probability that you might genuinely lose that spin, which in turn increases the probability of losing more money, because my strategy involves risking a lot more than you actually get in return. So your risk to reward ratio is on a negative side technically, because you're risking a lot more to get the returns I'm looking to be getting. But if I look at it from a trading perspective, this is a long-term game. If you think of how much you could get in a long-term, in a period of time, say 1 month, then it makes complete sense. The problem we find in today's world is everyone wants to make a quick buck really quick, and one of the issues with that is, if you walked into a coral shop, I don't know how many of you could agree with me, but if you walked into a coral shop with £10, sorry, with no idea of how much you wanted to lose, and you walked into to the shop with just a wallet full of cash, guess what? You're probably going to come out losing most of your money. On the flip side of that, if you walked in there with a wallet full of cash, you could potentially walk out with some money. But the truth is, you have no gauge as to how much you could lose or how much you could earn, because you didn't set none of those parameters before you went into that gambling shop. So realistically, I don't understand how people want to make money without planning for how much they want to make. So this strategy sort of takes away the element of gambling from this, where the idea is to just spin the board and take the element of gambling away, and that element of gambling gets removed the more numbers you cover on a board. Now, my strategy put into three steps right here, so I'm just going to explain those steps to you. I'll probably have a little note on the end, sort of detailing what the rules of the strategy really is. But the first step, you have to select a defined 2-number sequence required for each bet. So for instance, I like to pick numbers on opposite side of the roulette wheel. So my strategy involves covering 35 numbers out of the 37 possible numbers on a board. So you have 36 numbers, including 0, which makes 37 if you're using a standard roulette board without the double zeros. Now, if you placed a bet on 35 numbers and left out 2 every time, from my math, that equates to 98% chance of winning that roulette spin. Now, in my books, in trading, that's a very huge odd. Now, what we're trying to do here is exploit that odds of 98%. We're not trying to put bets on 5 or 6 numbers and hoping for the best. That's not what we're out here to do. We're out here to add value to our accounts on a day-to-day basis and withdraw some funds at the end of the month. That's the idea behind this. Now, I'm just going to give you an example of how this works on a board, because you've just watching the spin for a while now, and then we can kind of go from there. But right, so I'm going to use a 1p chip because for some reason Coral has frozen some of my balance right now, and I'm going to have to query this later on. But we'll start with a 1p chip, and realistically what we're going to do is cover 35 numbers on the board. Now, using this example here, I already see we've had 11, 7 and 22 come up so far on the board, and I'm just going to use any of those 2 sequences right now, although I have an already determined sequence numbers that I use for each of these spins. Now, I'm going to leave out 11 and 22, and I'm going to go with the spin. So I'll put 1p and leave out 11 and 22. There you have it, guys. So right now you should only have 11 and 22 missing on the board, and for me it says here, as you see, 95% of the board covered. To me, this is a 98% chance of winning a spin. Realistically, and from my experience, I've gone about 70-80 spins without losing one before. But guys, do remember, these boards don't actually work the way they look. They might spin around in circles and give off the idea that they're actually spinning and landing on a number like an actual roulette wheel, but that's not the case, guys. These work on algorithms, and they select numbers based on what you've placed bets on. So realistically, I've said this before, the best way to get a real idea of how it would work best would be to go into an actual live casino or the live roulette rooms, or go into a Grosvenor's or something down the bottom of your road, and that would work perfectly fine. But again, they don't allow you enough time to place these bets over there. So we're going to spin that. Right, so we got 31, so that's a win. And then we're going to spin it again, and the idea is just to spin and then choose another 2-number sequence. But the idea isn't to rush into how much money you're making in roulette. That's what people get wrong all the time. If you think about it, there are 36 numbers on the board, including 037. So if you had £1 on each number, and left out 2 numbers, you'd be betting on 35 numbers, and every spin you had, you'd make £1. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but you get the idea. The more you put down, the more you could make, and you could reduce the spin count by, say, for instance, if you wanted to make a £10 a day, you could put £5 on each number, and then that would equate to a lot of money realistically. But when you think about the fact that you're only going to be doing 2 spins, which I've just done in front of you guys, per day to make that £10, it starts to make a little bit more sense, right guys? So I'm just going to leave it at that right now. If you guys have any questions or any comments, do feel free to let me know, and do smash the like buttons, guys, and tell me how you what you think about the strategy for roulette. Now before we go, I'm just going to do one last spin for you guys, and then we're going to leave it at that. So I'm going to use the last 2 numbers that have just come up. So I'll use 7 and 22. Right. Oh, I think I just doubled down. Right. 7 and 22. Oh, undo that. Right guys, that's it. Again, 95% of the board covered. We've got 35 numbers covered, and realistically when you spin this, you should be very confident it's going to land on a number you have selected. Most of the time it doesn't. I'm sorry, not most of the time. There are times when it doesn't, and that's down to the fact that this is not a real roulette board, and there are algorithms playing behind the scenes to make you lose money all the time. Now, if I can actually, what you guys have to consider, right, is the fact that if I'm able to lose certain spins when you have 98% of the board covered, what does that actually mean for those other guys who spin roulette boards with just 4 or 5 numbers covered, or a cluster of numbers covered? That's just leaving it to chance. Now, does that make any sense? Why would anyone want to do that?